love your fishing, and I love to camp because I'm an RVer. And I really like staying at Mount Alice Campground because it's kind of a family atmosphere. It's a place where you can, you know, meet friends, have family members show up and enjoy your camaraderie there. And it's just really great. And it's one of the best access points to the lagoon or harbor, or how you want to say it, that you can find, you know, in Seward. And the fishing is great. And it's just, I can't tell you much how great it is, because on the 4th of July, the place is packed. And if you were to ever have a council meeting there on the 4th of July and talk to the RVers there, you would see a perspective on it a little bit different, you know, maybe than what the city sees. But it's just great, you know, to be able to have a facility like this where the access is so great for fishing, you know, that we can enjoy. Also, the staff members that run the campground, they are really fantastic people. They're just real friendly. They help you do everything from park your vehicles and also take your money. And you don't have these kiosks that sometimes don't work and you get argued with them a little bit. But it's just a great campground. And I dearly loved it, and I'm glad that Seward has something like this available where people like myself can go and enjoy myself. Also, the staff, they help you to park your vehicle. They also teach you how to fish if you don't know how to. And there's this great group of people that I've come across there at the campground. I'm open to any questions if you want to ask me.
We don't have a dialogue at this
I
time.
saw it just in case you wanted to clarify anything that I've said.
Thank you.
So, also, Tim McDonald, he has really bent over backwards to help people there. He has taken his own hikes in the trails that lead to like a mountain right there beside the campground on the other side of the water stream that flows by. And it is really neat, some of the stories that he has said about this area, how the original people that were here, what they did, and showed some of the off shots from what they have done here. They had an earthquake a few years ago, and it exposed some of the property there, and it was unique. Well, anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Russ White. Hi, I'm Russ White. I live outside Seward city limits. I'm the program coordinator for Seward Parks and Rec. And since you're talking about the contract renewal between ABTEC and Parks and Rec, I thought I'd just point out some of the positive aspects of that partnership to you guys tonight. We've received a lot of really good feedback since I've been working here in January from the public, and we've been able to open the ABTEC gym for 5 days a week from 3 days a week from when I first started. And when we lost some of our workers just about a month ago, we ended up having some community members step up and come in and fill in part-time to help keep the gym open because they thought it was that important to the city. Some of the things we've done that I've seen that's been really great for the community of Seward, we've had skate nights, which we usually see about 50 to 100 people come to those. One of the skate nights, we were able to raise some food for the community pantry. Our rock wall clinics have really taken off with the youth. We've had wait lists for kids to get on that rock wall. We currently just finished our last one before we're going to close down for a month here. And then our racquetball and volleyball leagues have brought new community members together and brought more people in, and seen use of that growing more throughout my time. I've got kind of our list of numbers just that I was looking at to see how we've been doing. In January, when I first started, we averaged 39 people per day coming in, and that included AvTech students. And it's grown every month, except for May when we had to close down a little bit. And in June, we're back to 38, almost the same number without AvTech students. So we're seeing more and more community members come in. And then, yeah, I just wanted to talk about it being a positive place for the youth after school. We've seen a lot more of the middle schoolers and high schoolers come in, and it's a safe place for them to come and enjoy activities. We see them play, a lot of them playing basketball. We've had a program where the high schoolers are coming in and working out for $10 this last month. And we've seen a little more participation from the high schoolers because of that. And the upcoming events that we have that I think will be really positive in our last week open here before we shut down for July. We have a pickleball tournament on Wednesday, which has been super popular amongst the public. We usually have a line of people waiting to play pickleball every time they're there. And we've got our film festival on Friday that's going to promote women in the outdoors and trying to inspire young women to get into the outdoors here in Seward. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the positive aspects that AvTech and Seward Parks and Rec relationship has been. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Tim McDonald. Tim McDonald, Inside City Limits. I didn't realize that the city was voting on bringing suit to me till I saw it in the paper. My attorney's 80 years old. He's a little off his game. He's about ready to retire. Good old boy, but so I got to get a new one. Yeah, I've been trying to comply with the city. I did buy a city business license a couple weeks ago. We're legal to pay borough sales tax, and I also have a state sales license. I guess there is no borough sale, am I saying that right? You know what I mean. So we've been legal, and I talked to the attorney. I mean, the last thing, 2 weeks ago, I was asked for if the survey crew could come on, and they came and they surveyed the front of my line. Unbeknownst to me, the city premise line starts at the very corner of my parking lot and then takes a pie-shaped slosh, and by the time it gets to the other side, about 50 feet of it is city tidelands, which, you know, my family's been using it for 60 years. I don't know about that, but anyway, the attorney sent me a letter and chewed me out for parking people on it. I didn't know I was parking on it and making money off it and stuff. It seems kind of silly, but it's been a full court press. I've been trying to keep everybody happy. It's not really hard. And the thing about this thing is there's been no due process. The one department head assessed me a $28,000 fine a year ago, and I've been on the back foot ever since, and I was never invited to testify at planning and zoning or give my side of it. Normally I would think that would be standard, and then that would be passed to you guys, especially for a fine of, you know, I mean, it's $30,000 now. It was originally $28,000. And, you know, this is something that I've had no control over. It's a boundary line that goes through a property that I bought for my family, and it's been that way for 100 and some years. And I settled it with the previous city manager a few years ago. And this department head, who has, nobody else has signed off on it but the one person, so I don't see any accountability. I've never had a chance to speak in an official forum, and I've been harassed terrifically, and I don't really understand why. Like I said, I agreed to be a city business. I bought the license. We're going to pay the sales tax. This is a long-standing issue that I don't have any control over, a boundary issue. I'm the only one it affects, and I think there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that need to be brought out before you subject to the city, the people, because I'm going to have to depose all of you if that happens, if I'm sued. Especially, I think there may be a personal aspect of a vendetta from one of the council members that's driving this. There's other things, so.
Thank you, Tim.
That's all I can think of, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Mr. Clerk, anyone else?
No one else has signed in.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Come on up. You know the routine. Got stuff.
Hello, my name is Kat Sorensen. I live inside city limits, and I'm the executive director of the Seward Chamber of Commerce, and we are less than a week away from the festival and 8 days from race day for the 4th of July and the Mount Marathon race. So I wanted to touch base with some things that are changing this year over last year. Adams Street will be closed on Sunday for festival vendors at noon. That's typical. Each year we shut that down a few days prior to the race for the festival vendors to move in. So the vendors move in at noon that day, the road will be shut down that morning. The rest of the roads, aka 4th, the big one, will close at 6 p.m. on July 3rd. And that's the night before, which is a different way that we've been doing it. We usually shut it down the morning of, but this year we're gonna shut it down the night before, and thankfully Public Works will be helping us set that up so that we can have everything in place and be ready first thing first in the morning. I've been able to talk to some of the business owners along 4th Avenue about how that impacts their day and their business, but if there's anybody who would like to chat more about it or see any ways that we can resolve some issues that may have of shutting down at 6 p.m. on July 3rd, you can call me at the office at 907-224-8051 and we can try to find a solution. I also want to take some time to do some thank yous. First to Chiefs Kreitz and Nickel for their help and understanding as we continue to grow the festival and move to different parking lots and across the town. And thanks for the whole city for their support. Again, Public Works for stepping up with the setup, Parks and Rec who always helps out with the fireworks, and to our OB Hero sister city for all of the awards. We're really excited about those. I always joke that they're better than the ones we give out, and everybody likes to bring them around at night to drink out of after they win. I also brought in our race guide, which is hot off the presses, and I can pass through the clerk to give out to you. And if you'll notice on the back, there's a schedule of events starting on July 2nd. We're excited to bring back the pasta feed this year for any racers or spectators who are hungry on July 3rd. That'll be $15 at the high school during bid pickup, and all of the proceeds go to the Seward Boosters Club. We are also this year bringing in a new fun activity called the To the Top Classic, which is a guessing game where you can win 80% of the pot if you guess the elapsed time that the first man and woman cross the top of the mountain. So you can find that at seward.com/classic, and tickets are $5 each, and the more people that guess, the bigger the pot will be. Our parades are at 11 p.m. on July 3rd. That's when the boat parade is along the waterfront, and then the land parade, as we've come to call it, is at 1 p.m. During the 4th of July. I'm running out of time, but I also wanted to say we're really excited for Sue to do the starting gun of the women's race, Austin Gillespie to do the starting gun for the juniors race, and Billy Joe Kopsick for the men's race. So thank you so much, and we're looking forward to a great holiday weekend.
Thank you. And be sure to look at all the awards there. They are very nice, as you can. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? This is the 3-minute time on any subject. Seeing none, I'll close this portion and move to the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda, and I need a motion and a second, please.
I move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any changes that anyone would like to make? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready to vote on this, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Osenga?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved. And on tonight's consent agenda was the introduction of ordinance 2023-018, approving the land use amendment to rezone a portion of proposed Tract 5A, Dairy Hill Subdivision Edition Number 1 from single-family residential R1 zoning district to resource management RM zoning district. The introduction of ordinance 2023-019, amending Seward City Code 15.10.140B, definitions pertaining to bunkhouse, lot, and long-term rental. 15.10.222, development requirements table, updating the minimum buildable lot size for single and two-family residential zoning districts, and adding table notes for lot frontage, and 15.10.226, land uses allowed table, adding long-term rental and changing the outright use of dormitories in the office, residential, and institutional zoning district to require conditional use permits. Resolution 2023-071, authorizing the city manager to enter into a one-year facility use agreement between the City of Seward and the Alaska Vocational Technical Center for the use of the Student Services Building for public recreation. Resolution 2023-072, adopting Personnel Policy 2023-05, Computer Use Policy. Action Memoranda 2023-007, removing Commissioner Monaco from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Action Memoranda 2023-008, accepting the resignation of Commissioner Staggs from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and appointing Todd Mashland to the Historic Preservation Commission with a term to expire May 2025.
Okay, thank you. This brings us to proclamations and awards, and I have such a thing for Joshua Ballard, and you want to come up here, and so everyone can see your smiling face. And there are 2 awards for you.
Okay, where would you like me?
Oh, well, the camera's over there, so if you come up here and
Okay, sure.
kind of, then people can see you.
Okay.
They want to know this wonderful person. There we go. So first of all, there's an award of life-saving. The City of Seward proudly presents this award of life-saving to Joshua Ballard for his heroic efforts during the June 2nd, 2023 overdose response and rescue, dated this 26th day of June, 2023, from the City of Seward, Alaska, signed by myself, Mayor Sue McClure, and I'll show you that. I'll give you both of these when I'm done with the other. And we also have a proclamation. Whereas on the 2nd of June, 2023, Officer Joshua Ballard responded to a call at the pit bar following the report of an unresponsive person. And whereas Officer Ballard had to make a tough decision on this call, break policy and attempt to rescue someone outside his normal patrol area or not respond. And whereas Officer Ballard correctly decided that based upon the limited response available at 3:30 a.m., this person's best chance at survival was him. And whereas Officer Ballard was the first responder on scene and entered the bar and observed the person on the floor of the restroom unconscious and not breathing. And whereas Officer Ballard brought his issued AED device and deployed it and joined a citizen bystander administering CPR. And whereas the AED record shows the person had no pulse. And whereas Seward Volunteer Ambulance Corps arrived on scene and was able to administer a dose of Narcan, take over CPR, and ultimately restore the person's pulse. And whereas, through his professionalism, quick thinking, and decisive action, Officer Ballard helped prevent the death of another person. Whereas, the City of Seward is honored and grateful to have Police Officer Joshua Ballard as a member of the Seward Police Department. And whereas Officer Ballard is to be commended for his heroic efforts. Now therefore I, Sue McClure, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby express my sincere appreciation to Officer Joshua Ballard and commend him for his selfless act of heroism, and do proudly present him with this award of life-saving on behalf of the grateful citizens of Seward, dated this 26th day of June, 2023, and signed by myself. And congratulations and thank you. I know you've walked off, but would you like to say any words about this? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. We've all talked about this in patrol as officers, that if this was the situation, this is what we should do. It's the right thing to do, of course. And so I know that You know, I know that most of the other officers have had opportunities to save lives in the same way by administering CPR, using AED. And so it's really kind of just like, well, this is just a job, you know, and I'm glad I was there. My CPR is on point. I've had more than 20 years of just trying CPR, so I'm glad that, you know, that I have that training, and I think everyone should have that training. So if you don't, get with the fire department, talk to them, get some good CPR training. You know, the chance that CPR is going to actually save someone, it's pretty slim. And so just the better the CPR, the better the person, the better the chance they have. So yeah, thank you guys very much for the acknowledgement and the award, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It makes all of us feel safer when we know there are people like you out there. So this is very, very wonderful thing that you do. This brings us to the city manager report, which you'll find on page 3 of the packet. And Mr. Acting City Manager Regis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you have my report in there, but I just want to add one thing. We actually had a meeting with Senator Mikulski's staff came down today, and we actually had a great meeting and talking about funding and future funding, how we can fund some of our projects, and they actually had some great suggestions for us in the near future. Just instead of trying to get all the funding from one source, you can actually pick parts of it for different funding, but it come through the same project. So that was a great meeting, and I think we're going to be moving forward with some of those things they requested in there. And then I know our lobbyist is on board with it also. We let him know about this, how we can break up our funding instead of going all at one fund, how we can separate it between different grants.
Okay.
Can I take any questions?
Yeah, questions for the city manager or for Stephen? Did you, oh, okay, Councilmember Calhoun.
It's actually more maybe just some finance things. Looking at the Central Treasury report, which is great that we're getting this. One thing that I'd like to see if possible would help me a lot, because you know, I'm a little slow sometimes, is maybe if it's possible to get a glossary developed that would tell us if these funds, you know, exactly what they do, as far as, you know, restricted funds and non-restricted funds, because I know that there's some of that mixed in here. I know that it's, you know, as the note says, it's pooled cash balance of each fund, but I know some of those funds are restricted and some of them are unrestricted. That would be kind of helpful to know. And the other question I have, just as an example, we've got a couple of red numbers on there, which assuming means that there's a deficit. And the Harbor CPV KPB fund, that's, is that money that funds the bus transportation? That's a passenger fee?
Correct. Anyone, MC just jump online? No? Okay, yeah, so that is CPB. So the reason it's probably showing red because you passed the resolution for the whole 3-year. That's why it shows red, but we should be receiving more funds, and next year it'll be reduced. So by the time it comes up to be used for that year, it'll be back in the black. Does that make sense?
Yeah, somewhat.
We have to show it because you guys passed the resolution for the whole amount.
Okay, which was
800.
almost $900,000,
Yeah,
something like that?
correct.
Okay, and so down in the bus transportation CPV funds account where it shows that we're in the black 150,000 and change, how do those two correlate? If we've authorized 900,000, which puts us in the red up here, but we're in the black down here, I guess it's just a question that I had.
So we can get MC to do a presentation for you next meeting on that, or the glossary, but I think he might be able to explain it better. But we asked that question also, and it shows, and it explained to us that we're going to be receiving more funds, and then it's going to take it out of the red. But then, you know, like I said, the original thing was you passed it for that amount, we have to show the deficit. So, but we're not using it all this year, so.
Okay, okay. Yeah, another one, just on the, on the harbor side, and the harbor master may be able to answer that. The GK&L floats, the city account is showing a $1.1 million deficit. So wouldn't we be transferring money from the enterprise fund to cover that deficit?
So we have not received all the money back from the state. We have to pay for it up front, and the state reimburses us after the fact. We're waiting to get just our last report back from the DEC, and then we'll send our report to the state to send us the rest of the funds. I don't think it made, the funds I just paid here, is just probably not showing here yet, that we received.
So the difference between the city and the state, when the state comes back, all of that's going to be done?
Correct.
Taken care of?
Correct.
Okay.
And we're actually under budget on that project, so everything should be on both the engineering part of it and also the construction part, we're under budget.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good for now.
Okay, Councilmember Wells.
To Councilmember Calhoun, I believe that I could be wrong, but the city is on an accrual accounting system, not on a cash-based accounting system. And so in an accrual accounting system, as soon as you accrue debt, it goes on the books. But you do not record income until you've actually earned the income. And so that's probably why the debt shows up, and since we haven't received the income yet, because it's on the accrual system. But I'm not sure, I guess we could ask our finance folks.
MC, are you on the phone? Apparently not, so we could, that's a question that could be asked. Okay, other questions? None? Wow. Okay, moving on to the city clerk report, which you will find on page 31 with a nice picture of our city clerk there, looking almost the tallest one in the group. Do you want to speak to that a bit?
So that group photo was all the clerks from Alaska who attended the professional development training. The other states there were Oregon and Washington. So it's the Northwest clerks, it's our division. And so pretty good group, and we learned a lot and enjoyed the sunshine in Tacoma. And yeah, it was a nice time.
Good, thank you very much. Anything else you want to report?
No, not at the moment. Thanks, though.
Okay, and we don't have a city attorney report tonight, I see. So, turning the page.
Should be online, Madam Mayor. If there was the city attorney should be online.
Oh, are you online, Brooks?
I think it should be Sam.
Yeah,
Sam.
I am.
Okay.
This is Sam Shevik.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a report. We normally do that at the first meeting of the month. But
Right. But it's good.
I'm on for an item later on in the evening.
Right.
If anybody has any questions.
Okay. It's good to have you here. Does anybody have a question for the attorney right now? Okay. Stick around, Sam. We'll get to that. Okay.
Thank you.
So, barring any other questions, that brings us to public hearings. Ready, but yet, we have a question or something. Councilmember Wells.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for our Assistant City Manager's report. I see that we have scheduled a council retreat on the 18th.
Yes, sir.
But some of us take off hunting on the 15th, and that would be me. And so, is there, if we are not unable to change it, I just won't be available.
Sure.
I can only cancel one trip a year for council.
You could cancel too.
And we can, thank you, Councilmember Wells, we can certainly flex the date. That was just a preliminary date. The mayor, the city clerk, and I met a few weeks ago and put some ideas out there. We were trying to stick with the Saturday, either the 4th, 11th, or 18th, and then we trying to skip the 25th just because of its proximity to Thanksgiving Day. But if council wants to have discussion, I think the Sea Life Center's got some pretty good availability if we wanted to flex it. So.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I leave on the 14th, so anytime prior to that, I'm available.
Would council be okay with the 11th?
try. I think some of us have to check calendars.
Sure. And we've
Not
obviously got a
very-
lot of time, so if council members want to take a look at your calendars, and we can talk about it at the next meeting, maybe.
Would that be okay? Okay, let's plan that.
And then, I guess while we're on the topic, Chris and I met a couple weeks ago just to continue working on the agenda, and we should probably be able to present you guys a draft schedule for what we're gonna be spending some time on. We're gonna try and keep it really, really light on stuff like Open Meetings Act, because most folks have been through that numerous times. And then CF Center, Joanna said that they'll probably be able to accommodate some sort of fun interactive tour like we did last time, but something different. And the goal of picking November was just because it's right after the election, so if we have any new council members, it'll be an opportunity for training, so.
Madam Mayor, I had one thing. So MC wasn't available tonight because had an emergency in his family, and I forgot about that. I got that email from him. So he's going to be not in phone range, so.
Okay, thank you, just so we know. Okay, anything else on any of the managerial reports? Okay, so now we'll move on to public hearings. We have 2 ordinances for enactment. And the first one, you'll find on page 116 of the packet, is ordinance 2023-016. Mr. Clerk, would you please read the title in for the record?
Ordinance 2023-016, amending Seward City Code, Chapter 5.20 Improvement Districts. This ordinance was introduced on June 12th, 2023, and is coming tonight for public hearing and enactment.
Okay, thank you. I'd need a motion to enact in a second, please.
I'll move for the enactment of ordinance 2023-016.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to enact. Administration.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the Assistant City Manager will talk on this one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this ordinance comes before council as a follow-up to our special meeting back on May 8th, when we talked about the developer reimbursement program. There was a lot of discussion about trying to incorporate some sort of mechanism into code that would give council a mechanism to help contribute, just like we do for developers, but for private property owners. So that's the primary update that's coming before you, but there's a couple other housekeeping items that are incorporated into this ordinance. They're all listed on the agenda statement in the table on 117, but I guess just to kind of run through them, we provided some housekeeping language about the application itself, that it needs to include the specific parcels. We deleted the provision in 520015A stating that the petition, so when somebody applies to have an improvement district, our current code stated that 50% of the cost associated, those owners would have signed the petition, but we don't know the cost of the improvement at the time of application. So there's a few other housekeeping items just like that. And I guess the only other item of note is on the middle of page 120, 520025C. Our current code verbiage actually didn't align with Alaska statute language. And so based on a council of 7 members, to meet the Alaska statute requirement, we have to have 5 council members voting in favor. But again, the main point of this ordinance, Madam Mayor, is to basically fulfill the desire that council expressed back on May 8th so that we can, do something if we've got private property owners. And the only other thing I would add is that probably in the next operating budget, council and administration should have a conversation about how we're going to fund this program, because we can create the code language, but until we've got funding to go into this, I'm going to call it like improvement program of some sort, we're going to need to fund that like as a startup and then also in the operating budget, but that'll have to come at a later time.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2023-016. Mr. Clerk, is anyone signed in?
Nobody is signed in.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this? If so, I'll tell you how long you have. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Is there any discussion from council on this? Councilmember Wells.
I just want to state that I really appreciate the effort that you're putting into this, and I think it's a benefit for the community, so I look forward to moving forward with it. So thank you.
Yeah, and I concur. This is something I wanted, and hopefully it helps. Any other discussion? You ready to vote? Looks like we're ready to vote. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, voting on the enactment of ordinance 2023-016. Barnwell?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That ordinance has been enacted.
Thank you very much. And our second and last public hearing is on ordinance 2023-017. Mr. Clerk, would you please read that in for the record?
Ordinance 2023-017, amending Seward City Code, Chapter 2.15, Ordinances and Resolutions. This ordinance was introduced on June 12th, 2023, and is coming tonight for public hearing and enactment.
Okay, thank you. And you can find that on page 130 of the packet. I'd need a motion to enact in a second, please.
I'll move for the enactment of ordinance 2023-017.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration, what you got?
Madam Mayor, once again, this is City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this ordinance is all, I'm going to call it new language, so it's creating 2.15036, reintroduction of defeated legislation. This was a topic that came up this past year where we had legislation that failed, and then the applicant requested that the legislation come back before council, and our code didn't have a mechanism for ordinances, action memorandums, or resolutions that would prohibit it from coming back. We do have language in Title 15 that's very specific to planning and zoning actions that states that failed legislation shall not come back for 9 months. I had a pretty good conversation with a member of our community recently who was asking about this, and the citizen, I think rightly, kind of questioned why 90 days in here. And I guess administration would recommend that the minimum that we would say would be prudent would be 90 days. And if council has a desire to extend that longer, then that's certainly something that administration could support as well. Just the idea being, if legislation comes before you and council fails that legislation, we want to be respectful of your time as council members, of staff time who's developing the legislation, and also, frankly, the public. It can be kind of draining on the public when we have legislation come back over and over and over when it's not going to be passed anyway. There is a provision in item C that states that council at any time can direct that legislation comes back. So if a resolution fails and 2 months go by and council says, hey, something in the world has changed, or we now have a need, or something makes us want to have an appetite to bring that back, then administration can always bring that back, but that would be at the sole discretion of the city council. Otherwise, legislation will keep coming back before you if you don't want to pass it. And I'll take any questions that you might have.
Well, we can do that during the discussion too. All right, thank you. I'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2023-017. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody is signed in, Madam Mayor.
Does anyone in the audience wish to speak to this? A second. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. So now, if you have questions for administration or anything or discussion, let me know. Councilmember Calhoun.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since we have Sam on the line and they've reviewed this, I guess my question kind of in general would be, are there other communities, municipalities and stuff that have something in their code that's similar to this, that's 90 days or 120 days or 180 days? Did we look at that at all when we came up with this? Or
it's a good question. I can try to figure out the answer right now. I did look at other communities to try to find just a template, an example of language like this and a time frame. And the first one that I hit on was Soldotna, which does have it, and I, off the top of my head, cannot remember what the time frame was, but I probably even look it up in the next just second here. But People want to debate, and I can just take a second and see if I can pull it up, because I know it was still gone on. It would have been either 90 days or 6 months.
Okay, if you want to look that up while we talk for a bit.
Sure.
Okay, other questions, comments? Well, we don't have much to say, so let me know if you can find that, okay?
No, here we go.
Okay.
I got it. They use 90 days.
Okay.
Sildana does. As far as how other communities do it, I'm not sure. There's no prohibition on, as Stephen said, on going longer. That's what you decide to do. The concern I had is just if somebody really did do some really constructive, good work to address the concerns that led to the failure, then making them wait too long wouldn't be in the best interest either. So.
Okay, thank you.
To the city. Yep.
Thank you, that makes total sense to me. Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, just to clarify then, if somebody did reconstruct that and make meaningful changes that we as a city council decided, yeah, that makes sense, we could, like Stephen said, we can bring that back up for a vote, or bring it back for a discussion.
That's what's included.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay. Other questions, discussion? Councilmember Wells.
Well, I don't understand how, if we set this for 90 days, and so somebody can't bring it back to administration so that it gets to us, if they do whatever, massive, changes that are whatever was required, how do we find out?
We would, it would depend upon the circumstance, but in all likelihood, if there was substantial changes or there was an underlying reason why, let's say, like I said, maybe something changes that would be a good cause to bring it back. In some capacity, city administration would reach out to council, whether it be, as a discussion item, we use that sometimes, or in a CMR to get council feedback, and then we would probably request direction from council to bring it back before you.
Thank you.
Makes sense, yeah, I was
going to definitely bring it back to discussion item, so.
Okay. Other questions or concerns? Ready to vote on this? Okay, Mr. Clerk, we're ready, I think.
Okay, voting on the enactment of ordinance 2023-017. DeMoss?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Okay, that ordinance has been enacted.
Okay, thank you. And that was our last public hearing for tonight.
That is correct.
Moving along to unfinished business, we have on page, item 9A1, the 6th Avenue Public Works Facility Location Determination, Lot Size and Zoning. And this is on page 135 of the packet. And what we're being presented with after our discussion, I'm just going to kick this off, is somewhere in here, 4 options of lot sizes. And they should be labeled here. Oh, there are plats, starting on page 146, there's a concept 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so administration, I don't know which of you wants to speak to this, or?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Jason's going to come up and talk about it, but with what was requested that you asked of us to do, Jason went ahead and got everything figured out, the different lot sizes and different, things, and what it would take, and he's going to present it for you if you had any more questions.
Okay, good evening, everybody. As requested, we just want to bring you guys back some more information on the areas so that you guys can make the choice of what you wanted to do here. So just to kind of, I'm sure you've looked through it, but just to kind of give you a quick preview is that on page 140 is just kind of the Muni Land Plan excerpt from that area. And then over the next page 141 and 144, what we wanted to show you just so that you could kind of see the outlying area of those 2 roads and the other lot sizes along there. So if you're looking at like development consistency, and so what you'll find out is the majority of the lots on both 6th and Blaine are over 6,000 square foot lots. And so, but just for you guys to kind of see the area and look at it critically that way. And then on page 145, we did just put the information there as far as urban residential zoning information. We have the dwellings, the different dwellings that are allowed. One of the things to pay attention to right below that is the development requirements. And I think when we're looking at this, you do want to know like maximum lot coverage is 40%. And so we did put down kind of the footprint of what was allowable on those lots, depending on if it's a 3,000 square foot lot, you're going to have a 1,200 square foot footprint, and so on and so forth down there for the 45 square foot lots and the 6,000 square foot lots, which are 60 by 100. Setback information, and then also some land uses allowed there in regards to what you could also use as a primary resident. You could have a home office. You could do home occupation for certain things. Short-term rentals, kind of like a traditional bed and breakfast in that area. And then we did put down, like the mayor said, we have 4 plat concepts, and those plat concepts are all what I would say we're going to pick one thing all the way down here and one thing all the way down here, because you start to get into kind of some infinite situations if you start mix and matching, which you could do. But, and I did want to make one note that on plat concept number 2, or actually any plat concept that has the 45 by 100s on 6th Avenue, you're going to have a 60 by 100 because the spacing, it just doesn't work out right evenly as you put those lots over there.
Could you say that again?
So the way that the plats work out with 45 by 100s if you look at plat concept number 2,
right,
on page 147, you see it's got the red square up there.
Oh, I'm sorry, so you're saying there has to be 160, not...
Yeah, it has to
okay.
be 160 by 100
sounded,
on that 45, sorry if I misspoke.
It just sounded like that, okay.
Yeah, so we have to have 160 by 100 if you're going to have 45 by 100s on that side. Which we did say that if you did decide to do that, a corner lot would be a good place to have that 60 by 100 because you have your setbacks are differently on both road sides. And also too, it just creates a little less traffic congestion if we have a little more space on that end. So, yeah, we just gave you, again, this is not all the options, but it's a number of good options with what you guys were discussing at that time, so.
Okay, thank you. Well, what I'm hoping we can come up with tonight is a decision on which plat concept, 1, 2, 3, 4. I kicked it off the last time with the administration's suggestion, which would be plat concept number 1, the 30s and the 60s, I believe. And I've gotten a lot of feedback on that from people that 30s are too small. So personally, I will kick this off by saying I think plat concept 4 is a good compromise, having 60-foot lots on Villain and 45-foot lots, which are bigger than 30, on 6th Avenue, and that 160 in the corner there. Councilmember Wells.
Isn't that number 2?
Well, I'm looking at number 4.
Number 2 is
Number 2 has all or 45s on Villain.
Not on my packet.
Those are 45s.
And 60s, right?
Well, they just have it at the bottom.
Oh, just the one.
The one.
I understand. Thank you.
See, this
Okay.
is why we have paper. We were just having a discussion about his fancy new device there that he can write on, and I can write on paper too. So, but anyway, so that, yeah, would you look at 4, and on these, the red is the 60s. So anyway, we just need to hear from everyone. So I'll start over here with Councilmember.
I've looked long and hard over this one. I like plat concept number 2. The 45 square lot, if we sell to locals, it's more feasible financial. The 60-foot corner lot, I'd like to see the city save that for city employee housing, put a 4-plex in there. But we're getting 21 lots, that's 21 houses in that area. And at a 45 lot compared to a 60-foot lot, the numbers are easier for people to finance and get into.
Okay. We could just go around did you have your hand up too, Councilmember Calhoun? And then
I did.
We'll just get everyone and then we'll
I'm
go
going to
down.
start out with kind of just a statement, and I'm not really trying to gum up the works, and I don't think it would anyway, based on how everybody wants to do this. But, you know, my delayed intelligence from the last time when we started looking at this, I really think that we should have put this through planning and zoning before it came to us. And maybe they could have done their work sessions and had their public comments and everything on, and given more time for the community to look at this and have more input on how maybe this should be developed. I know that there's apparently a time frame as far as the water and sewer going in. I just, you know, we're underutilizing our planning and zoning commission for stuff like this. This is their bailiwick. This is what they do. And if we don't allow them to do this, then we're kind of disincentivizing them and their commission a little bit. And so I just wanted to go on record and say that if it were up to me only tonight, I would kick this to planning and zoning. But it's not up to me. I just want to make that statement, and I think that we should have used their expertise and used them to get this whole thing going so that when it came to us, we had a better idea from the whole community on what they would have liked to see before we got to this point where we have to make a decision because water and sewer and stuff is about to go in. So that's my comment right now.
Okay. Just going around the room, Vice Mayor Osenga, do you have a preference? Plats.
Well, when we first started this, I was in favor of what administration had stated, and then I realized that the 30-foot wide lots are indeed kind of skinny. So then I went to looking at 6th Ave or Belaine Boulevard, driving down Belaine, and I think that a majority of those lots are 60 feet wide. So I can understand Plat 4 with the 60-foot wide on Belaine, and then 45 with 160 on 6th Avenue. I think that maximizes our numbers. If we're not comfortable doing the 30-foot wides, then I believe that is a maximum. I mean, obviously you could make it all 45, and you gain 3 more lots. So to me, the 60-foot on Belaine and the 45 on 6th works.
Okay. Councilmember DeVos, do you have a?
Yeah, I have a couple. First, I want it went through planning and zoning, correct? It just was presented from community development. Okay. So I would like,
Stephen has.
I guess the only thing I would add to that is that lot size, yes, zoning, P&Z did review because this was incorporated into the updates in the municipal land plan that suggested that we rezone it UR.
Thank you.
But not lot size.
So I guess I would agree with Councilmember Calhoun that in a perfect world right now, if we wanted to make changes, I would agree that I would want to send it back to P&Z, although I think we have enough to work with that we can decide on something tonight, and I would like to not see it postponed. I think that the process was followed. It's zoned for what it is. Community development presented us with the plan per the current zoning, and that in itself had a process. So I'm not sure, again, I agree with Councilmember Calhoun that it's not really a discussion. I mean, we shouldn't be at this point having this discussion. I'm fine with either Plan 2 or Plan 4. If I had to pick number 1, I would say my number 1 would be plat concept number 4.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Wells.
Thank you. I agree, plat number 4. 2 things. To Councilmember Finch, I believe that we have a zone, a lot size requirement for a 4-plex. And if I remember correctly, and I probably don't, but I thought it was like 15,000 square feet. But if we could ask our director.
Yeah, you want to come up?
To answer that question?
Yeah, I think it's 9,000. I don't have the code book is quite large, and so I never like to just throw things off the top of my head, but I can look it up right now.
Well,
but it's
I believe it is 9,000.
But it's more than 6.
9,000.
Okay. So,
It couldn't be a four.
it couldn't be a fourplex as of right now.
Or a duplex.
No, it can be a duplex.
Right.
Either one.
Yeah.
Something for.
But it
Yeah.
can't be a fourplex. And to Councilmember Calhoun and Councilmember DeMoss, as far as P&Z goes, P&Z, we just lost two members, and if we were to even vote to kick this back, we don't know how long it could sit back there. And so, although I do believe it should have went through planning and zoning, as the other council members do, if we were to say send it back now, who knows when it would go through. So I request that we vote.
Okay. Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, I like Councilmember Finch's idea on the 45s in the sense that, the one thing I like about that is, first off, I like that corner lot for the city also. That's a great idea. But the 45s, at first I really kind of, I like 4, but the 45s might encourage locals to buy those more than speculative out-of-towners, because those oceanfront properties are going to probably be fetched up by people of money, maybe speculative from out of town. And the 45 might diminish their interest in those. I was more interested in 4, but I could go with 2 for that reason. So that's kind of where I sit on that.
Okay. Councilmember Calhoun, do you have a preference? And then we'll go back around again. It seems the way that we can do this.
My preference would be number 2. Number 4 would be my second choice.
So we're kind of split. Councilmember DeMoss.
I have a question about number 2. If we vote yes on number 2, are we committing to that lot being for employee housing?
Oh,
So,
administration.
so Madam Mayor, that could come back at a later date. It's just making the lot sizes come out equally. That's all that is. But that will come back at a later time.
Okay. Vice Mayor Singh.
So just a question. So let's say we do this and we move the public works facility. How does this work? So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how are we going to actually sell these lots? Does a person contact the city and make an offer, or do we get evaluation or appraisals done? And
So that would be a sealed bid through the.
A sealed bid.
Yeah.
Okay. With a minimum based on
There would be
the,
a.
So we would do an appraisal, because Title VII states that we have to dispose of for at least fair market value.
Sure.
Unless there's a vested public interest otherwise. So we would, based off of whatever we would do an appraisal of the lots.
Okay.
And then they would all go up for sealed bid.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
let's start back over here, okay? Councilmember Finch.
Is there a way of those sealed bids being for just the locals instead of the out-of-state, out-of-town money coming in and just dominating like they've been doing to all our property?
I think that'd be something for the attorney to
Yeah.
answer.
Sam, do you have an answer to that question? Would it be,
Sorry,
the question is, would it be legal to do sealed bids but only have them offered to locals? Is that your question? Yeah. Is that legal?
sealed bids, but only offer them to locals.
Right.
That's getting getting maybe more than I can answer spontaneously.
That's all right.
But there is, I mean, we can certainly explore that, and I can say I don't think it's necessarily illegal. I've looked at that before with Seward has in other land sale type situations tried to restrict deeds to make things more favorable to local purchase, and there are ways to do it, but
Can we look into
so we could certainly explore it, but there's going to be some restrictions on how far we can go with that.
Okay, thank you. That's something we can look at later. Tonight, we're just deciding on the lot size, I think. Stephen?
The only thing I would add to that, and it's something that Sam and Brooks and Jason and I have talked about, is we for sure can state in the purchase agreement that whoever purchases the lot would have a reasonable amount of time I think the number that we've thrown out before is 36 months in order to develop a home. There was some comment from the public that I saw this week that I think rightly points out that we've got a lot of undeveloped lots inside city limits, and we certainly don't want these to sit vacant. And so we absolutely can put a provision in there. If you purchase a lot, you have to develop within 36 months.
Okay, does that answer your question, Councilmember?
Yes, because if you look down Second Avenue, we've got lots that are
Right.
empty in the winter, but in the summer, there's RVs there. They bought the lots just to RV in, and it's just an empty lot in the winter. And I don't want to see that happening here, or big money coming in and just taking, the locals are putting in their bids, and the big money's taking the houses right from them. So we need to start protecting our housing for our locals.
Sam?
Sorry to interrupt. That's That's another thing we could do is consider putting in restrictions on the type of use, that it needs to be used for, like home as opposed to parking or seasonal business. Just be careful with all those, but we can use language to get it trending in the right direction at any rate.
Okay, well, that will come later though, too. So, Councilmember Calhoun.
Yeah, I was going to say, all this other discussion is kind of
Right.
later stuff. All we have to
We can sit
decide
here and
tonight
talk
is the
all night.
number of lots, so we know how many stub outs.
Right.
That's,
So,
that's the hurry.
so Vice Mayor.
No, I'm good.
Oh.
Thank you.
Liz, anybody else have a comment? So at this point, we're kind of between 2 and 4, but that's not good enough, right? We have to pick one or the other. Okay. So can we just do a little straw poll? Can we do a, yeah. Okay, so if you're absolute about number 4, not changing to number 2, let's say you're, 4 is your thing. Could you, no?
I don't want to.
How many would like 4? How do we ever, okay, 4. 1, 2, 3, and I'll go either way at this point. Okay, so how many would like 2? There's 3 of you, and I'll go either way on this, so. Yeah. I know. So we're split. I mean, and we haven't been convinced. I could go for 2. I mean, I like the idea of 4 being it's the one that has the 60-foot lots on Belaine, just because that's sort of in keeping with the larger lot size on Belaine. That's my only reason. There are other reasons to go for 45. So, yes, Councilmember DeMoss.
I also could go with 2 maybe, in that I do like your argument that it would be more affordable for locals. Potentially, we would get our hands on more.
It does speak to the need, and
I'd like to point out that, we got plenty of 60-foot lots along the waterfront there. These 45-foot would allow locals to buy it at a better price, because the houses are getting jerked out from underneath the locals by out-of-state money. We need to help do something quickly.
Okay, Councilmember, I'm sorry.
On that note too, I think the 45s would, so is it 1,800 square feet for the building?
You mean for the house
Yeah,
that they
for
can
the
build?
building. I think that the smaller houses might discourage more B&Bs.
Right.
And
more family homes.
And more family homes.
Okay.
Which I like.
It is 18. Okay, I'm convinced. Councilmember Wells.
I can go with 2.
Okay, could we have a show of hands for concept number 2 at this point? Okay. Do we need to vote verbally on this, or can we just say this was a consensus and give direction?
As long as the clerk puts it in the minutes, that's great.
That it was a consensus for plat number 2?
I can put that in the minutes, or
Okay.
you could make a motion and we
Well,
can take a vote.
We should vote. I'll move, go ahead.
I'll move to accept plan concept number 2.
And I will second that. Okay, so let us vote on that, please, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, voting on the approval of plat concept number 2. Calhoun?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, plat concept number 2 has been chosen.
There you go. That's how it works. That was very good. Does anyone want a 5-minute break before we go into the next item? No? We're ready for John? Okay. Our next item is new business resolutions. Resolution 2023-073. When you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you read that title in?
Resolution 2023-073, approving the lawful action to bring suit against a non-compliant campground at 1823 Nash Road and appropriating funds in an amount not to exceed $10,000.
Okay, and you'll find this on page 153 of the packet, and I need a motion and a second to approve this resolution.
I'll move for the approval of resolution 2023-073.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we defer to the city attorney.
Okay, Sam, you want to speak to this?
Sure, I'd be glad to. This is a property that's been operating without a camping park permit as well as city business license for, I don't really know how long, but presumably at least the last couple of years. There's been an awful lot of informal as well as formal efforts to get into compliance, including last summer a formal agreement that I helped negotiate between the property owner and he had an attorney at the time, agreeing to stop using the property illegally and including actually a suspended fine if he didn't stop or resumed again, and it has now resumed. There's no effort at diplomacy that appears to be working, and so in order to get compliance with the city code, there's not much alternative at this juncture other than bringing a lawsuit. That would include primarily with these, the driving thing that you try to get is injunctive relief, meaning a court order saying stop violating the law and resolving if there are any defenses, resolving those. And in addition, fines, which the city of Seward is generally pretty good about not being too aggressive about the fines, but enough to deter the behavior in the future. And then would be mindful of trying to recoup as much of attorney's fees and costs as possible. So the timeline would be, I've started pulling together a complaint. We've been dealing with this for a couple of years now, so there's a lot of information. But I could get something together in a week or so and be ready to move forward.
Okay, thank
you. So that's quite a mouthful, but that's what we're looking to do. I can provide more specifics on anything or on what a lawsuit would look like, but glad to take any questions.
Okay. Councilmember Wells.
Thank you. Two questions to our city attorney here. One, do we know if the campground was compliant with borough taxes and a borough business license?
I believe, as of last time I checked that, they were not, to my knowledge. And I talked with the city today, actually, and it called specifically to ask what do we know about that. And we're going to follow up on it this week just to verify the current state of affairs. But my understanding, we've been in communication with the borough, and last I knew they were not compliant with borough business license or tax requirements, but that could change, could have changed.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wells.
So, reading the letter submitted by the company and the majority shareholder states that they didn't know that they needed a business license with the city of Seward. But everybody knows you need a business license within the borough if you think you're within the borough. So the very least would need to be collecting that 3% sales tax for the borough. So I'm curious about that. Second thing I'm curious about is if this administration could answer this for me. We saw the representative of the company today present a business license. And is that valid, and does that, or not is it valid, I know it's valid, but when was that issued? Because if I understand last year's contract, it said do not operate in 2023 until you have a business license and you're registered to collect sales tax, and here it is almost July 1st. I guess this would be a question for council, is are we, now that the person has, or the company has a business license and is registered to collect sales tax, are we willing to squash this?
Let's ask administration first, and then I have a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the document that Mr. McDonald presented to me earlier, and I can hand it to the clerk and pass it around for council to view if you would like. This is a receipt for a payment for a business license, but and I'll have the clerk perhaps speak to this, but the city can't issue a business license until the entity is in good standing. So at this point in time, until sales taxes are paid, we can't issue the business license.
Okay, we got follow-up, Councilor.
Thank you. So this, as a person who has multiple businesses, I've been through this process multiple times. And when you, just for the community, if you haven't participated in obtaining a business license, I think it's important that they know. You first apply for a business license with the city. The city then, you have to apply for a sales tax, and you have to have your state business license, and you have to register with the borough to collect sales tax, because every business in the city of Seward takes and pays the sale, or gives the sales tax to the borough, then the borough administers it, their 4% to the city. So just by paying for the license is not a business license. Is that correct, administration?
Correct.
And it was, the payment was made 2 weeks ago?
May 24th, I believe.
And we don't know, we don't have any documentation that it's gone through the borough and back to the city yet?
You're saying the sales tax?
I'm asking if we have any documentation, maybe this is for the clerk then, if we have any documentation from the borough stating that that this company is now registered and to collect sales tax. And we're clear for a business license for the city of Seward.
Yeah, do you have anything to?
The last that we heard from the borough, he was in compliance for the borough property tax, but not the sales tax.
Okay.
One last.
Okay.
Last question. Do we know is it because they're not registered with sales tax, or is it because there's past due sales tax? And if there is past due sales tax, do we know how far back?
I don't have that information.
Okay.
When we do compliance checks with the borough, they just give us a yes or no answer.
Thank you.
So council, Mr. McDonald has been holding up his hand, wishing to speak. We could suspend the rules and allow him to speak to this if you would like. I'm putting you on the spot here, but that's the only way that he can.
We'll put a time limit on it.
And with a time limit, to answer some questions perhaps. Is there anybody drastically opposed to that?
No.
Okay, Tim, do you want to come up, or Mr. McDonald?
What would you like the time limit to be?
Let's say 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Yeah. And maybe, go ahead and sit down, to answer some of the questions first. Okay, so what you got?
If I could, I think I could clear up just by testifying a couple minutes from what you were talking about. For one, you know, we don't operate in the winter, so we don't have any sales tax obligation to the borough. I got the city sales tax license on the 24th. I did not collect a dime before then. I had a few customers, but I did not charge them. So I did not charge any sales tax, or anyway, you know what I mean. I didn't charge anybody anything until I paid for the business license. We've had I gave the clerk a copy of the state business license, which covers the borough. There is no borough business license. It's a state license and a city license. So as far as not being compliant at the moment, I've turned everything over to my bookkeeper, including yesterday's receipts, everything but today, so she has 100% of what I've earned and to pay that sales tax for that. I told, I want to get it squared away, so I have not collected anything until I had the thing. And the only problem with the license is the conditional use permit, which I wanted to do right away and submit that at the same time, but after reading the requirements, it's a professional document, and I'm a trained engineer, but I don't have time, and it might be a little bit behind anyway. They want exact measurements, et cetera, et cetera. It's basically a land survey. It has to be done on a land survey, so I haven't done that because it's hard to get any professionals to do anything at this time of year because they're so overbooked. So that is coming. So that's, as far as I know, that's the only thing that I have to do it. And as far as not needing a city business license, like I said, this has been a long-standing issue, and nobody's ever listened to me a bit. I don't mean to dispute the administration, but we have not had numerous meetings. I had one sit-down with the assistant city manager and the department head. The department head refused to say anything at that meeting, just shrugged his shoulders a couple times, so it was basically just me talking to the wall, having a little bit of back and forth with Stephen, but we didn't accomplish anything. So, you know, like I said, this property's been in my family for 60 years. I didn't purchase it till 2016 after I sold Preacher's Pond. That's originally why I was operating as a borough business, because Preacher's Pond is 100% outside the city, even though it's on the line, and this property is 25% outside. So I operated for years that way, never had any problem. And then, you know, in 2017 or 18, whatever, the city manager and the assistant city manager, who fled on the same day with no notice, had queried me on that. And I, you know, stated my obvious things that, you know, hey, we've got all our infrastructure outside the city, our signage, our RV dump, water, pay station, etc. So we've always been operating as a business, and they declined to continue with that. So I was blissfully unaware that I was not in compliance until the attorney mentioned 2 years. Negative. It's been exactly 1 year that the department head sent me the first letter, and shortly thereafter I was assessed 3 years back sales tax, $28,000, and I've been on the back foot ever since. And I've never had a chance to, you know, go into detail, and it's not something I can do now. It's very complicated. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances, and nobody seems to care. You know, I run a clean business, I run a safe business, I bend over backwards to keep my people happy. I don't invest anything in infrastructure because I'm selling the business. This is my very last year. You will not have to deal with me on this issue next year. I'm 65, I have health problems, I'm retiring. And so zero investment, that's for somebody else to do. I don't, you know, there's so many different things to talk about on this. I don't know where to start, so I'll just ask you what you want to know.
Okay, Councilmember Barmaw first.
I have a question for you, Mr. McDonald. Last year, you were 3 years overdue last year, and it was very clear that you knew that. It's in writing.
Where was I?
There's a letter right here to you from last year, August, that indicated you were 3 years overdue.
No. Hold on. Let me have my say. That was being assessed for 3 years back sales tax exactly 1 year ago at this time almost. I think I got it on the 16th of June. Well, I don't, that's the first, when I was first contacted. And then shortly thereafter I was assessed that. But I was not alerted 3 years ahead of that. I was alerted last year and assessed 3 years back sales tax because I was all of a sudden an illegal business. So that's where that comes from.
I understand that, and I get that. But I guess my question is, you keep saying the city hasn't really worked with you, but from what what I read here, your fines were somewhere in the order of 25,000, but the city reduced those down to a reasonable amount, and you assured the city that you would work and alleviate and pay those off
Excuse me,
a year ago.
Councilmember Barma. Sam, could you mute, please? Thank you. Okay, good.
So I'm just wondering, how do you respond
Mute
to
your
that?
phone.
Because you keep saying the city has
That's okay.
city has been very aggressive, but it sounds like they were actually amenable to you and trying to help you out with this.
Okay, like I said, it's very complicated, and there's been more than one fine. First off, I was assessed approximately 28,000 and some change initially for 3 years back sales tax. Now, I never knew anything about it till then, or, you know, maybe he alerted me June 16th, but I was assessed shortly after that. Now, there was another fine for $10,000. I forget what it was for, and that's the one that got reduced. I paid $1,000 and signed an agreement for $4,000 if I reoffended within the next 3 to 5 years, something on that order, and they forgave $6,000 of it. If I am remembering correctly, you know, like I said, I've already got a stack of paperwork about this high on this, and like I said, it feels like a full court press and a vendetta to me, even though I know it doesn't look like that to you guys yet. But if you have all the information, you may have a different view of it.
We set a time limit. Are you guys willing to keep asking questions? Okay, because I think Councilmember Wells was next.
I do have a question.
And then I'll get you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. I appreciate you being here to help clear things up, or at the very least to speak your piece. We do have a contract here that is signed between you, your attorney, and our city attorney from last August that you would not open this year unless you were in compliance.
I didn't.
However, we were just stated, or we were just told, unless the city clerk, something has changed since that time frame, that you have not been issued a business license, you've only paid the business license fee. So would you say that you have fulfilled your obligation to that contract?
Well, this is the first I've known of it. I thought I was buying a business license, you know, so I didn't realize that was just a receipt. It says business license on it. And like I said, I've been in compliance with the borough for years. I've been paying them sales tax for over 10 years. And I did not know that. And as far as the fines, you know, this is a micro business, you know, assessing me that $28,000 is basically a death knell to a business like mine. You know, I can't plan for that, whatever. And I have no income in the winter, so I did not open this year until that I felt that I had my ducks in a row. I did not collect any money until I came into the clerk, paid for a business license. I knew my state license was valid. It's valid till 2024, and you know, I thought I was good to go. And I don't have any money in the winter to pay any fines or anything. And to tell you the truth, I have a lot of reservations about the way it was done. As I said, I never had a chance to have a meeting before planning and zoning and speak.
Let's just answer the questions that we come up with.
I forgot what the question was.
Well, you did. Did you have a quick follow-up?
I just have one follow-up question.
Okay, and then I'll get you.
But it's actually for administration.
Oh, go ahead.
To administration, if I'm reading this correctly on page, and I'm trying to read through and assess all the fines that were issued, but from what I understand, it states that if Mr. McDonald either came into compliance or if he honored the contract that was signed between administration and the attorneys and himself, that his fines would only be $1,000, which I believe has been paid or not?
Yes. But that doesn't include the 28.
Okay.
So I would refer council to page 161, item 4 on the packet, and I can read it for the public's sake. The fines will be reduced to a total of $5,000. So Mr. McDonald is correct. So if you go back to page 160, the second to last whereas indicates that the total fines were in excess of $10,000. The total fines will be reduced to a total of $5,000. $1,000 is due to the City of Seward within 10 days of the signing of this agreement, which Mr. McDonald signed on August 30th of 2022. The remaining $4,000 is suspended for a period of 3 years from the date this agreement is signed by both parties. The city will not take action to collect or sue to enforce the suspended portion of the fines and will forgive the suspended portion of the fines at the end of the 3-year period, provided that Mr. McDonald does not violate this agreement or otherwise violate Seward City Code by operation of an unpermitted campground. And I would point out that that also includes the city camp park permit. If formal legal proceedings are initiated based on violation of this agreement or code, Mr. McDonald agrees that upon a prima facie showing of a violation of this agreement or the Seward City Code relating to unpermitted camping or commercial activity on the property, the $4,000 fine is owed to the city, and Mr. McDonald waives any defense to the $4,000 reduced fine amount for the fines assessed in August 2022. The only other thing I would add to that is I would dispute Mr. McDonald's claim that the city hasn't taken proactive measures to reach out to him. I personally called him in early May, and I believe I sent City Council a copy of that communication. We had a very, what I would describe as cordial conversation, but I reminded Mr. McDonald at that time, the city desired compliance. We also desired businesses to flourish. We're a pro-business community, but it has to be within the guidelines set up by Seward City Code. So I guess I would respectfully disagree with the characterization that the city hasn't taken proactive communication very seriously.
Okay, thank you. Can I move to Councilmember Finch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. McDonald, this 3-page statement that you signed with your lawyer, where it says on May 2nd, 2017, the City of Seward issued a conditional use permit to Mr. McDonald to operate a campground within the industrial zoning district. The conditional use permit, by its terms, require maintenance of a current city business license and annual camper permit, park permit. This is 2017, and it says this agreement does also, on page 2nd page, it says this agreement does not pertain to city or borough tax issues. It may not be used as a defense in any tax action against Mr. McDonald or any related entity pertaining to campground or related enterprises. So you've known since 2017 you've needed these business licenses and you refused to comply with them. That's.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, please do.
Well, as I said, you know, I originally started out as a borough business, and these are my main and only assets is real estate. And I did own 38.5 acres outside of city limits. And when I sold that, that allowed me to buy this property. You know, as I said, my defense was that I had talked with your administration and they had declined to go with it. I originally, as soon as I sold that, I signed up with the city and I made a mistake and I admitted it. I told them and I rescinded that. Maybe that shot me in the foot, I don't know, but I shouldn't have done that. I should have stayed the way I was, and so I made a mistake there. But the reason I have reservations is, you know, the city has 8 campgrounds. There is 0 private ones except me. Now, please let me finish, this is important. And you know, the campground at SMIC just became a paying campground for you, I think 2 years ago. Before that, it was non-paying and people were going there fishing, and now it's cleaned off and it's one of your stable of campgrounds. The same thing is happening half a mile down from me on Nash Road before you go up the hill. There's a parking lot there that usually has the same amount of cars in it I do. And I've noticed the city has put in a 8-yard dumpster and 2 different outhouses in there. So it's a de facto campground competing with me for the exact same customers I am. And it's an attractive nuisance. The cars will be lined up 30 or 40 on each side there. And so the point being is that, you guys are kind of the elephant in the room and I'm the mouse running around trying to get away with you. I don't have a chance competing
Okay,
against the
hold on,
city,
hold
and
on,
you
hold on.
guys are bent on destroying me, basically.
I'd like to just get to my point of, you're saying the city's not working with you, and it's in writing right here that you signed and agreed to. The city issued a conditional use permit in 2017.
Then why wasn't something done about it then? Why has it been 6
Okay,
years?
So.
No, I'm
we
just
could-
asking a question.
I know, but we could go back and forth like this. Administration, what do you have
Yes,
to
Madam
say?
Mayor.
And we're
Again,
gonna
I just
go
want to
on.
talk about
Okay, hold on.
the dumpster and the porta potties. So it's health reasons why we would put them in there, because they were dumping trash everywhere and then just defecating into trees. That's why we put them out there, not to compete with any campgrounds.
I think
Fence
we're-
it off, don't let them go in there at all.
Okay, we've kind of gone off topic, and we've allowed you, more time, so unless there's some compelling other questions, I could bring it back to council. Are we okay with that? One more. Okay,
But it's not
Councilmember
for,
Wells.
it's for administration.
Administration. Okay,
Thank you,
Tim,
Mayor.
so why don't, I gave you a chance to talk, and we appreciate that.
And
So-
I do appreciate that.
Okay, so why don't you, I just want to move us along here, if that's all
I
right.
understand. I just do want to say that, I'm not looking to get in a fight. I'm looking to survive, and it's a complicated thing, and we haven't even scratched the surface of all the issues that affect this. So I just want you guys to know that it's pretty deep, and if you guys sue me, there's no recourse for me but to sue you back, and we're going to get into it deep, and I don't want that. It'll destroy me financially. You guys only have your 350 a month stipend to worry about, but I have everything I own, everything I've worked for my entire life on the line. So keep remembering that, and believe me, I'm motivated to get this squared away.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring it back to council once again. And you have a question, Councilmember Wells?
Yes,
for
thank you.
administration.
I just have a question to Mr. McDonald's comment about being $28,000 in back taxes, and I'm wondering if administration or the city clerk can verify that comment.
Administration, you?
I don't think we can, the amount, all I know is that the clerk had called and he is not current with his sales tax. We don't know the amount, they never tell us, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So, council, we have a decision here. Well, it's a resolution. It could be acted on tonight, it could be postponed, it could be acted on one way or the other. What's the, does anybody have a comment? Are we ready to vote on this? Councilmember Finch.
My comment on this would be, like Mr. McDonald was talking about suing the city back, why not take that money? He would apply that to pay the fines, the back taxes. So I would have no problem giving him 30 days to get all of that in compliance, and then we initiate this.
That's a thought.
But, I mean, if he's gonna threaten to sue us back for the taxes that we are all paying in our businesses, that we've all bought our business licenses, and we know, take that money that he's gonna use to sue the city and pay his taxes and get it in compliance within 30 days from today's date.
That's a good idea. Administration, what do you think?
So Madam Mayor, you can ask Sam. Sam's been working,
Yeah.
we've given him time previous till now to get this squared away.
Okay.
So another 30 days is going to be past, the red season's going to be over with. And then, we've gave him plenty of time. You can talk to the attorney. He's had the timeline with his attorneys and talking and everything, so. Sam can give you a timeline of what he's been working with. I know we gave him plenty of time earlier this season.
So Sam, if you'll unmute now. Did you hear that?
I'm unmuted, and I really apologize.
Oh, that's okay. It was nice to hear you a little bit.
But, yeah, Mr. McDonald's been represented by Mr. Nangle, and we have been talking since, I don't know when it was initiated, but definitely a lot of back and forth on a regular basis. And I've written 3 letters, I believe, or at least 2 or 3 letters this year already saying, hey, it looks like you're operating. What about this agreement? To know, and I know they're being delivered because I get acknowledgement of them, and to no effect. And it's it's frustrating. And But one of the issues, for example, was that I was sent a copy of that business license application by his attorney going, see, here we got it, we're all squared away. And I confirmed with the city that that was a receipt for an application as opposed to a business license. Pointed that out to his attorney and got no constructive response whatsoever. So there's been a tremendous amount of back and forth. But the exact date of that, I don't know. But his attorney regularly sends me letters, and I'm sending him letters. We're making no progress at all. I don't. Yeah. That's kind of the status of it right now.
Okay, so giving 30 days may not accomplish the goal, is that conclusion?
It does not appear to, but that doesn't seem likely to accomplish anything, but I understand that's I understand the reason why, but no, I mean, because we gave, as council has pointed out, the agreement here is very, very simple. I don't have any of the permits. I'll stop operating unless I have the permits. And then in May, when we find out that there's operation, and write a letter going, hey, how about this agreement that says you won't operate without the permit? There's no response. There's no constructive response, no meaningful argument back or game plan other than a $30 application fee being paid, and that's deemed compliance, and that's concerning. If that is deemed considered to be an effort of compliance. The other thing is there's business license, but there's also camper park permit. So much of the conversation was about business license. There's also a camper park permit that is lacking and is part of the conditional use permit requirement. So known about since 2017 that there's been no effort, as far as I can tell, to obtain one. I don't see a receipt for an application for one of those. And so that's also a concern.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Councilmember Burnwell.
I just, I think that Mr. McDonald's been playing us. It's become a game. I don't have a lot of patience at this point for his verbiage. I think I ran a business for 7 years. I paid my licenses. I paid my taxes. I was compliant, and I don't have a lot of patience, particularly when the council and the lawyers and the city have put up with so much effort to comply to help you, Mr. McDonald. I don't have a lot of patience at this point. I would like to know from a lawyer's, if we initiated litigation, where does that put Mr. McDonald in terms of how hard would it be, or how onerous would it be for him? What are we talking about here?
Sam?
How onerous for him? Well, it would be, the part of that depends on the extent to which, much of that depends on the extent to which he wants to dig in and defend it or counterclaim, right? So if there were, for example, there's $4,000 out there right now that should be, it would be very easy to just file a motion with the court after filing a complaint and just go, look, we want the $4,000, we're entitled to that. That would be something where Mr. McDonald, through his attorney, could call and say, okay, look, I get it, I screwed up. I'll pay the $4,000 and I'll agree to have an injunction against me until I straighten out the taxes. And if he were willing to comply and enter a court-approved settlement that probably looked somewhat similar to this, then it could go away. It could also come back before the council. There would be a question of fines, question of attorney's fees, a lot of questions along the way, tactical decisions to be made about how much to try to recover financially, or I don't want to say how punitive to be, because that's not ever been the city's intent, and it's not my approach to these. But those would all come back before the council, too. so the council could have some say in it. But, so, I mean, it's the ball in his court on some level, I guess, but would the question is something like, what would be the litigation budget to Mr. McDonald? And I don't know, that's between him and his attorney, but it doesn't have to be an astronomical, it doesn't have to be a tremendously burdensome something. The city is very consistent and always has been, and I really appreciate it, with saying compliance is the goal. Compliance is the goal. And I trust that would be the approach here as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, courts uphold tremendous large fines in code enforcement type issues like this that go on and on forever. And it's the same reason that one of the council members just spoke to, is that everybody else has to follow these laws, and a lot of times it puts you at a competitive disadvantage if you follow them. And so courts don't hesitate much to impose daily fines in amounts that seem very large, but the city always has the ability to scale that back and not ask for as much.
I may have a solution.
Well, Councilmember DeMoss.
I would just like to say that I agree with Councilmember Barnwell. I would like to vote. I would like to move forward. I'm ready to play hardball.
And I think it's been sort of stated that coming into compliance could make this go away even though we vote this tonight. So if you have a solution, that could happen, however the vote goes. But I know, but we kind of bent the rules enough, I think, on that. Are we ready to vote, actually, on this?
Don't you want to hear the solution before you do? You can vote on the solution.
Apparently, council does not.
And I ask that Councilman DeVos excuse herself, since we've had a spat going with this, so I asked her to excuse herself from the vote.
In terms of our conflict of interest rules, she does not have a conflict of interest, so she would be able to vote. They have to do with monetary.
Mr. McDonald, move out of the doorway.
Councilmember DeMoss.
For the record, we didn't have a spat. You verbally abused me after a council meeting. Thank you, that's all.
Okay, but that's Councilmember Wells.
This is the last thing I'm going to say about this, is I've been in business in Alaska now for 17 years, and it wasn't always easy when I first got to town as a charter boat operator to collect sales tax and decide whether or not you were going to pay those sales tax or make your boat payment. And so I understand that, but the sales tax is not the business's money. It's collected on behalf of the borough and the city, first of all. And I do know for a fact that with the borough, if you're behind on sales tax, they don't want to shut down any business either, and they're more than willing to put together payment plans with a minimal deposit. Lastly, I don't know how many times Mr. McDonald came in and spoke to us and said, I'm not getting a business license. I don't care what you do. I will sue you. I'm not getting a license. I refuse. And so that's a precedent to me. And I'm ready to vote.
I'm ready to pay the $4,000. I have a solution that will be acceptable to you if you'll listen.
Go ahead.
Administration?
No, ma'am. Go ahead. Go with the vote.
Oh, is that what you're saying? Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk, we're ready to vote on Resolution 2023-073.
Okay, voting on the approval of Resolution 2023-073, Osenga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
DeMoss,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay, we need to take a break. Can we take a 5-minute break? Enough? Okay, we'll be back at 8:50, maybe 8:50.
Okay, we are live.
Okay, I'll bring us back to the meeting. It's 8:51, and we have just a couple discussion items, other new business. The first one I brought after discussion with, well, let me tell you what it is first, I guess, to discuss amending Seward Code 2.10.030A2 regarding regular city council meeting times to reflect a 6 p.m. start time. And I'll speak to this just briefly, that there's been, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, we put this forward and didn't want to do it, and I feel compelled again to ask how council feels. The reason I brought this forward way back was, it occurred to me that, you know, the Borough Assembly shifted to a 6 p.m. time, and it got us out of there earlier, and I understand Soldotna City Council starts at 6 p.m. I also understand now that maybe P&Z is considering starting at 6 p.m. But it's a discussion. If you don't want to go that way, that's okay. We just won't direct. If we do direct, it'll be an ordinance to direct administration to come back to us with an ordinance reflecting that. So there would be a lot of time for public input before we even decide. So, what you got? Well, let me just ask if administration has anything to chime in. Okay. Councilmember Finch.
I've had a lot of people talk about they like it at 7 because a lot of them get off at 6 and can get there or get to their TV to watch it. And I know the local radio station even said they would have a hard time being able to air it at 6 o'clock, but at 7 it's easier for them with their time frames on everything.
Okay. Yeah, and I will say that I did hear from the local radio station already. So, you know, what we're deciding here, do we want to put this as an ordinance, as a question for more feedback, or just, you know, if enough of us are opposed to it, then we'll just let it die for lack of, so. Councilmember Wells.
I don't see any reason for not putting it out for public comment and stuff like that. I mean, we've had countless meetings since I've been on council that have gone till 10 o'clock and a few that have pushed until 11. And if I can be here at 6, and if we can work it out with, I mean, if the community wants to come in, and let's let them decide.
Okay. Vice Mayor Osenka.
I don't have a problem with 6 o'clock. Excuse me. The only thing that I will ask, though, is when we started doing this different meeting type that Jeanette brought onto us,
The special meetings.
the special meetings, I'm not going to have a 4 o'clock start time. I'm not going to have a 4:30 start time. And if a special meeting needs to be called and had before our regular meeting, 1 hour is all we're going to get. And then even then, if I can get here, which I think I can at 6, but that's my only concern. I don't have a problem with the 6 o'clock one, but there are other considerations, other meetings that happen that we keep calling, and we've had many.
Yep.
Okay, we'll speak to that, but Councilmember DeMoss.
Is it an option, does the meeting, if you have a special meeting, can you push the regular meeting to 7, or does it always have to be at the same time?
Oh. Well, in code right now, it says 7, so it would be, I think we should stick with a set start time so people know. I think, that's just my opinion, that people know now that they can tune in at 7. But rather than, oh gee, this week, you know. Yeah, that is an issue. It was suggested by administration that maybe some of the things that we have special meetings for could actually just be on the regular agenda instead of the special meeting. Gee, so, you know, that's a thought. I mean, we're not locked into any particular scheme, but other discussion. Councilmember Calhoun.
Yeah, for me personally, it doesn't really matter, but I won't be on the council forever.
We might.
You know, there are, you know, we have to look at it as not whether it's convenient or not just for us, but future council members who may have work schedules. You know, and I know one of the things that we want to try to improve is our, I don't know what you want to call it, reputation with the community of being open and available and allowing as many people to have access to our meetings and everything as they can. And I just don't know that moving them earlier is really gonna do that. I mean, I'm not opposed to having it come forward and have public comment and everything on it. But, you know, we may have a meeting that goes till 10:30 or 11 o'clock sometimes. That's kind of what we sign up for, you know? And because Soldotna does it, doesn't mean that we should do it. Because the borough does it, doesn't mean that we should do it. But we have to look at more than just the 7 people sitting here and realize that down the road, you know, you could have council members that work at Spring Creek and don't get off until 6 o'clock. You know, charter boat captains that got to get in and clean their fish and do all their stuff, and maybe they can't get here. So I don't want us to limit the pool of people that might be interested in running for city council because we've set a meeting for 6 o'clock, and it just makes it tougher for some people.
Those were exactly the arguments that were brought up the last time we suggested this, and I'm more than willing to say we don't need to even put this into an ordinance. I was more curious, I mean, I know it doesn't just depend on this particular council, but I've gotten a lot of calls already just on our discussion item, and they were all negative about changing to 6 o'clock, just like before. So I'm more than willing to say, let's just let this die and be happy, and just don't complain then if we meet till midnight sometime, because we're allowed to do that, you know. So unless anybody feels really compelled to do an ordinance for this and have a further discussion. Vice Mayor, you had your hand up.
I was just gonna say, I will complain. That's all.
Yeah, you're more than, you can complain if it goes in. Okay, does anybody, is there anyone opposed just to letting this go? Okay, 5 years from now, if I'm still on council, I will bring it back again, okay? Because I'm not gonna give up, but I totally understand all the negatives on this one, and, yeah. So, okay, we're done with that. The second item of other new business is to review, discuss, and select members for the ad hoc committee for reviewing the current status of the Seward utility. And this means the Seward electric utility. And what I would like to do is just right away move to postpone this to the next meeting to make this decision, because you know how I am about deadlines, and there were, well, we had 3 applications, and then there were a couple that didn't make the deadline, and I believe in deadlines. And also, we were wanting a 7-member ad hoc committee. We've received now several more. How many total do we have, counting the ones that were late, Mr. Clerk?
So the clerk's office received 4 letters of interest after the deadline.
Oh.
So that would be a total of 7.
So we have
3 in the
7.
packet.
We have 7 now. So my motion would be to keep, of course, all of them, but postpone this to the next meeting, and also have a deadline for, continue to advertise it, have a deadline of Wednesday, July 5th by noon for any...
That's the clerk's deadline to have it in the paper, correct?
I'm sorry?
For him to put the agenda in the paper, that's your deadline?
Right. Right.
Yes,
The clerks, we spoke about a potential deadline that would work for him. So if, that's my motion, could I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So, to postpone until the next meeting, which would be, what is it, July
10th.
July 10th, and to have the deadline for any subsequent applications be Wednesday, July 5th by noon to the clerk. Okay. Any discussion about that? Okay, can we vote on that, please?
Okay, so we're voting to postpone until July 10th meeting, and the deadline for applicants will be Wednesday, July 5th at noon. The clerk's office will have to receive their letter of interest by that point. Osenga?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that has been postponed.
Now, see, we could do that with every item in our meetings, we get done early. So the next item for discussion, and our final, is to discuss current plans for the Obispiro delegation exchange and determine budget and parameters for traveling. And I would like to turn this over to anyone that is on the committee, which would be, well, we have something from Councilmember Barnwell. And so the committee has been Kat Sorensen, Councilmember Barnwell, and Clerk Chris Peck, right? And there are some concerns and some need for discussion, so do you want to lead that off?
Yeah, I can lead it.
Okay.
But could we have Ms. Sorensen and Mr. Peck involved in the discussion?
Yeah, is that okay
fine?
with council if she comes up and you could sit there and,
Okay, I'll just.
because you know what's going on.
Yeah, I'll just start it off and then Ms. Sorensen and Mr. Peck can jump in as needed. But we have met 4 times, I think, two by Zoom with Japan and 2 in person. We've put a lot of time into this. It's been, we're diving into this thing going, oh my gosh. There's a lot to this, you know, there's 10 or 11 people coming here in late August. There's 4 students and an adult coming in late July. And then there's a group of us going to Japan in late October. So there's three parts to this. And if you look at the sheet here, we are, the first thing is the student exchange. They're coming the 29th, leaving the 5th. And it's relatively inexpensive for us to have these 4 students and the adult. Most of the activities are pro bono. And I think it's pretty easy. We feel pretty confident on this one. This is pretty good. So basically, there are 2 students. Well, there's 4 students. Two students go to one house, 2 go to another house, and then we flip those so we could do it with as little as 2 families that volunteer to put up these students, and then they just flip those during midweek. And then Chris from Obispiro will stay in a hotel. So that one's pretty basic, and in terms of cost, in terms of logistics. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that we're missing on that end is the homestays, which we're going to start searching for in earnest in the coming days. There was a deadline on their end, I think it was the end of this month, to discuss with the students where they were going to be staying and kind of give them some familiarization with the families. But Bob is correct, it's 2 students 2 students in 2 different homes, so the students go to 2 homes. And it's 4 teenagers, I think 16-year-old girls coming, so they seem really excited.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we didn't have any Seward students apply to go, so if there's any people listening out there with students going into high school, get your kids ready for next year, maybe.
Could I just interject something? There was a question about, this just seems like a whole lot of work for a few people. There used to be I just looked it up now, Seward International Friendship Association, I think. I could look this up again, I should. Okay, hold on. That Seward International Friendship Association, Phyllis Shoemaker was involved and a bunch of people, so I reached out to her, and they disbanded some years ago. And all of their funds that they had those some years ago were given to the city too. So the city's been doing this. So it wasn't that onerous in terms of time and effort
We
when
wondered about
that group of people was doing it. And so that's why it came as a bit of a shock to us.
Yeah.
So just to throw that out there. But people such as, I shouldn't probably say, but those people, I could get you some other names, would have some more knowledge too about maybe who's friendly about homestays and such things, okay? So, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I talked to Lynn Hull,
Yeah,
several people, and Kathy Byers, and they're all willing to help in terms of what happened in the past. The second part of this is the adult visit. That's August 25th through September 1st. They have 10 to 11 people. That's relatively inexpensive for us also. They also obviously pay for the way over. We're only obligated for incidental, I'd say actually, we're not obligated for much of that. Maybe a community dinner, but I think Rotary's talking about the community dinner. Well,
Not, no, I
Sorry.
have to
Maybe.
propose it to Rotary still. So they have not talked about it yet, but it is
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
my agenda to talk to them at the next meeting.
Yeah. We haven't nailed down everything, but it's a pretty active week, and we feel pretty good about that. I don't think there's too much.
A big event in that week was Founder's Day.
Yeah.
Having a celebration for that while they are in attendance. The Obihiro delegation would really like to participate or attend.
Could I speak to that? So we're planning on a Founder's Day experience at the museum and the community room. Of course, the library's closed that day. It's a Monday. We're having it midday because it's a council night and I have to be there. And I don't have it with me now, but I think it was something like 11 to 2. And I will give you that exact. And so we're kind of hoping to work within that, having them there. And I'm going to find some Japanese music to play on the pump organ, that kind of thing. But, to share our history, and we're getting, anyway, so.
Yep.
That's great.
This, we being RBHS, sorry.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. Peck's digging up some old, some things to greet them, like from over here, from their previous gifts.
Okay.
To put on the walls. Okay.
And then they will be attending the council meeting that night as well. They'll have
Okay.
the mayoral delegation
Oh,
if they would
right.
like to attend the council meeting.
Yeah.
So planning ahead and thinking maybe a proclamation or something to commemorate that relationship would
Absolutely.
be great. But like Bob was saying too, it's just showing them our culture and having an opportunity to communicate with them and showing things that we do here. So some hikes, council meetings, bringing them on the historic walk, on the mural tour, out to Exit Glacier. I've been in communication with some of the interpreters at Exit Glacier Nature Area, and they'll be able to facilitate a walk. We've reached out to
Seward City Tours.
Seward City Tours to do something along those lines. So it's kind of very in line with what we do at the Chamber of Vacation Planning. So it has been quite fun to dig into that. But I think the big thing for that late August one as well is getting the citizen engagement and having people showcase our culture and how we as Sewardites live. Randy, our Councilmember Wells, was so gracious to offer up his Airbnb, but then having people come in and cook dinner with them and have experiences with them so that they can see how you barbecue fish or what kind of meals we cook. So I think the big call for that aspect too is community engagement and getting people excited about showcasing all the great things about Seward in late August.
Yeah, that's a little bit of we're trying to because there's 11 people and we want to get several families that might want to take a group in and have a dinner, but 11's probably too many, so we could bust that into 2 or 3, and so that's some of the details that we're working out, but we're getting there. We're also looking for the first night because Mr. Wells has lodging for 6 of them. But I think the first night we need some homestays, so we're looking for community members that'll take in 4 to 5 people or 6 people for the first night. So
Not all together, but it doesn't have to be.
yeah, we'll bust that apart. Go ahead.
So I did block out my calendar for every one of these nights, the 25th
Oh,
and
okay.
the 1st.
Oh.
So that first night is available at your lodging.
It is now.
Wow, you're the superhero.
Yeah, I canceled the Airbnb that was booked for that night.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Never mind. Pedantic question I'll ask later.
Anything else on the adults? We're good? Yeah. So the third one is the Seward Adults Obihiro, and that's the clincher for us because it's a lot of money. The flights are somewhere around $2,200 a piece to Obihiro, and that's finding the cheap ones. I think the cheapest ones I found were $1,500 to Tokyo, and then Tokyo to Obihiro, and you have to fly. And that's like Tuesday to Tuesday. That'd be the cheap, even like budget stuff. In the years past, I talked to Kathy Byers the other day and Lynn Hole, and the city paid for I think 10 people the year they went. I think 2012 or 14 or.
It's a chunk of money.
Right now we have 5 of us in the council, and Stephen, between Stephen and us, and
What did I
we're
just
assuming Ms.
read?
Sorensen.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so, Councilmember Wells, Barnwell, Osenga, Assistant City Manager, and
Yeah,
Cat at this point, because,
yeah.
and
So
Randy's wife.
we're gonna have to make a decision if we wanna open that up to community members, if we wanna pay for that, or if we want to invite them, but they don't pay for it. For instance, my wife's really interested in going, but,
Yeah.
I don't think she assumes she's going to be paid, for that trip, so we have to make that
Right.
decision.
I think that's,
I don't know if we have any hotels, possibly in Anchorage, before we travel. Foods and transit, we have to make that decision, incidentals. If we decide that citizens should go, we have to have determine who goes. We have to have some sort of application for that. And then, Mr. Peck brought up that Kushihiro is a sister Harper's, is that Harbor City? And they're only 2-hour drive away,
Yeah.
so we could do that too, which would be kind of cool, and go visit those guys. And I did talk to Lynn Hole was just saying that when you go to Overhero, when they wine and dine you and keep you, they're super attentive and hyper vigilant, and like they keep you running, just like doing all kinds of stuff. Ours is a little bit more casual, but that's us, you know.
I think he's
so.
underselling our plans too.
they could be refined.
Yeah. So bottom line, we have to come up, it's costs. It can be as little as 14 or so thousand to 30,000. And at this point, if you look on the bottom, we have only 6,250 in the Overhero account. And we also have 14,743 in the general travel account that we could apply to Overhero and then pay that back later. So we just have to make the decision of kind of how many people want to go and where the money comes from.
So what, yeah.
I don't know, is there anything else?
Yeah, so I think when we were talking about it, the costs are very high, especially for flights. And having citizens join is really awesome, but also paying that bill for all of the citizens is a little unwieldy. But like Bob said, when you do get there, it's kind of a cost-effective experience to be in homestays and to explore that cultural opportunity and that exchange realm. So I would recommend if we were to move forward with bringing citizens over, we do so with a public application period with the understanding that they would have to pay their way there, but they do get to be part of the delegation while they're over there. So if there's citizens that want to join and attend and visit as part of the visiting sister city, they do so by buying their own ticket, but then they get to participate in everything that Overhero has planned while we are there.
Including homestays.
Including the homestays.
They put you up.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
have that
Food
those
and-
5 people and then.
Yeah.
That was going to be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think
It's different, but the costs are much higher now.
Yeah.
Did you have a?
Yes, Madam Mayor, says that we could bring back a resolution to appropriate more funds to that account to get everybody to go. I mean, so that's something we can do.
Right.
I think as a group, I'm speaking for the group, but I think we're pretty happy with funding for the city group and then putting out applications for people like Ms. Sorensen, Kat said that we could, you know, it's a pretty darn good deal if you're traveling to Japan for $2,000 and then most of your costs are paid for.
I know that, Madam Mayor, that Hank West wanted to go and he speaks. He went last time and
That's right.
tried to
Yeah.
speak. So he was talking about he might want to go, but I can ask him again if you do the application thing, I'll let him know for sure.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Councilmember Finch had his hand up.
Yes, I've had some people hit me up with some questions on this. Their main question is, what are local, with Seward going over there, that they're at this cost, what are the locals gonna get from this trip? And anything, spend the money to upgrade the kids' parks in town and swings? And why doesn't the city of Seward look at adopting Seward, Nebraska?
That did come up.
You've been there before?
Trust me, yes, I lived it. It's a cultural experience, trust me.
In the past, that came up at our cemetery walk last week, that, you know, because somebody we were doing an obituary for had come from Seward, Nebraska, and so that, or went on one of the exchanges. That used to happen, and that was dropped over the years, and so, yeah, that's for, but but Vice Mayor.
I'm not sure, but it seems to me like the reason why this started with Obihiro in Japan, it was a whole idea of I don't want to say marketing, but it was an idea of taking Obihiro and Seward and being able to express interest in both directions as far as commerce and whatever other things that could come up from this, us being sister cities. So it was kind of a an agreement that we would get to know each other and that we would be able to maybe whatever we have in common we could kind of have a common goal to. It was a cultural thing, but it was also I think there might have been some business ties kind of things that were I think maybe some of our seafood processing or our port city status kind of had things to do with maybe why they were interested in coming here, but I think it was also just the friendship of having an international friendship at that time. I mean, it was just kind of
Right.
nice.
It's historic. Councilmember Wilson.
Well, yes, not only is it historic and important for those reasons to maintain that relationship, but I can hear where, sorry, I just had a piece of candy, I apologize. Where Councilmember Osangus, it definitely will increase tourism from those areas, and maybe us going over there and coming back and talking about it will increase tourism for their area. And of course, we all know tourism increases everything for us here in town. So I would say that the benefit is an economic benefit second, and it's a historical event first.
So what you need as a decision from us tonight predominantly is how to pay for the travel? For our the city's delegation, and also do we pay for the citizens? Okay, so I definitely think we should probably, just opinion, I mean, we've got 5 people going that we would be paying for, correct? I think that should be the max.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we should offer it to citizens if they would pay their own airfare. I'm seeing nods to that. Councilmember Wells.
So, would you be making a motion then for us to vote on that?
Do we need that? I guess.
To direct administration to
Or
put
just
it out
to-
for the community?
Yeah, and then we would have to put it out for citizen applications. Up to how many, well, should we state?
Yeah, can I comment on that? They did, the
That might be
Japanese
2 parts.
contingent, by the way, they have paid guys that plan this out. So, just saying.
Well, you're just as good as that.
What are you saying?
Better wages than what you're getting.
But they did want us, they stipulated that if there were there were couples that were going over, for instance, if my wife came over, or they needed to know that because they have to plan their homestays. They only have so many homestays that can accommodate couples.
So they would like to see an equivalent number of people go.
Yeah.
So about 6 citizens, but they are open to accommodating extras if it's a couple. So if Bob or Councilmember or Vice Mayor Osanga's wife would like to join as well, that wouldn't necessarily dig into the amount of citizens that can go. So I think it was 6 people total in addition to the 5 attending, or the 5 council.
Yeah.
Can I put that all in one motion?
Sure.
Okay. To give direction. So I'm going to move that the city pay for those 5 members that are on our list from the city to go, and that to 6 citizens
Up to 6.
could go, but they would pay their own airfare. And then also direction that there would be advertising for the applications for that. And I'm making a motion, what else?
No, I was just going to, the
Okay.
clerk should have the applications from the past that he could put out.
Okay, so can I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, does that sound like, or do we want to vote on that? Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, so voting on the motion that the city will pay for the 5 members from the city, and then the citizen applicants will pay for their own airfare but still be part of the delegation. Is that everything?
And that there would be up to 6 citizens.
Good idea. 6 citizens.
I believe.
Okay, ready for a vote? Wells?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Finch? Yes. Osenga?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is passed.
Okay. So then, is there anything else you need from us at this point? Mr. Clerk or any member of our wonderful committee?
So I guess the one clarification would be, is that cost in addition to the 6,000? Because we do have some costs to address when the delegates come to visit here as well.
Right, so that.
That's the second part of it.
Yeah, sorry,
I was gonna talk
thanks,
money.
Ms. Sorensen. Yeah, so again, we have 6250 in the overhero. Do we have access to the general travel account as needed?
Let me ask administration, how would you like to do this? Either just, we could pull some money out of the general fund, or just use the travel budget and then refund it when needed? Because it's travel.
We could probably use the city manager's travel budget and see, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, what's in there.
Oh, that's a separate account.
Yeah, well, all Stevens' money can come out of there, so that would free up some of that, but we can come back and figure out what it's gonna be, and then come back with a resolution appropriation.
That would be good. Would that, you guys can work together on that? Okay, and then we can vote on that separately. Does that sound? Okay. And is there anything else? You guys are going to get gold stars or something for this, okay? Big gold stars. All right, so we've accomplished that, and I hope you've all read all of the board and commission minutes that are in our packet, and if you haven't, they're good reading. And that brings us to citizens' comments. We've chased the citizens away almost now, but it is time for citizens' comments, and you'll get 5 minutes if you choose. There's a citizen right there.
Hello, my name is Kat Sorensen, and I live inside city limits. I'm also the executive director of the Seward Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to once again give a lot of thank yous leading up to this 4th of July. And I know we were talking a lot about over here, but one big thank you for all of the trophies and plaques that I'll be bringing home tonight, and that we'll be handing out on the 4th of July, and then again at the Salmon Derby in the end of August. So they're always a really big hit. So thank you again to Obihiro for that.
Okay. Any other citizens wishing to speak? Those are citizens. Okay, that brings us to council and administration comments and responses to citizens' comments. And I'll start with acting city manager Norm Regis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I want to thank everybody for speaking tonight, but I just wanted to say one thing. So up there, I went up to an event up at Little Canyon on Saturday at 2 p.m. They dedicated a maple tree for Ruby Foldager Blake. It was really beautiful. They got a nice plaque up there. There was lots of people. It was great. The sun came out for the event. It didn't rain on us. So Flip mentioned that many times in his little talk, and it was really it was good. There was some emotional minutes, but it was a great event. If you haven't get up there, it's right by the water tower. It's a nice, beautiful maple tree. We just got to figure out a way to protect it from moose this winter. So, yeah. So, anyways, but yeah, get up there and see the tree. And there's a nice, beautiful plaque that they made, and then somebody actually, I think today, set a stone up there with some metal stick men on a rock, like they're climbing a mountain. And so it's pretty cool. They just set that up there, so I have to go up and see it now. So, thank you.
And Assistant City Manager.
Just a couple things. First off, thank you to the police department for being present and active here tonight. And also hats off to Josh Ballard for his just awesome work that I think a lot of times is the work that the police department and the fire department does on a daily basis. It's just a service to our community. And then second thing, we have a lot going on in the Public Works facility project. First off, council will get a presentation from administration and Doug and R&M Engineering on July 10th at the next meeting. It'll be a presentation followed by a resolution to continue work on that project, as well as a resolution on July 24th for council to vote on putting that ballot proposition on the October ballot for the public to vote on moving forward with the bond, the general obligation bond. And then we're going to have a resolution at the next meeting to use ARPA funds. We've got some federal grant money that we can use for the water and sewer main extensions down on 6th Avenue and Belaine, so that we can take the direction that you gave us tonight on the lot sizes and bring in the utilities, so that when we build the new shop, then those lots can go out for sale. And yeah, just a lot of work on that project going on. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with Councilmember Finch.
I'd like to thank Officer Ballard and all the SPE for what they do dealing with a lot of negativity in the public and remain diligent and professional. I'm glad Parks and Recs is increasing programs for the kids. For the record, we've heard a lot of stuff negative about the Red Run. Myself and Councilmember can verify the Reds this year are a lot bigger and very healthy. I got a little quote I'd like to say for 4th of July weekend is, just hope everybody understands it. May we think of freedom not as a right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right.
Very nice.
So,
Thank you. Councilmember Barnwell.
I'd like to thank Russ White for coming in with the AppTech program. I've personally have been going there a couple times a week, and it's really well run. There's a lot happening there. He's got a lot of good energy, and I think it's just a great asset for the community, for our kids and the community. So I really appreciate Russ for having that kind of commitment to that job. Steve Lair, I really appreciate him taking that land and putting it into resource management. That's been my wife worked on that for quite a few years with her students, 5th graders, and they did a lot of science work in that area with the fish, and it's a great place to put into research. It's a perfect place for resource management, and I appreciate Mr. Laird for donating that or making that happen. And people, if you're interested in Over Hero, please join us. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It sounds from people that have gone in the past, it's a life-changing event, and I think it's a great opportunity. And then lastly, I can't believe 4th of July is already here or around the corner. So good luck, because we may not be seeing people until after that. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Calhoun.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just I want to give kudos to Officer Ballard and actually to all of our first responders that do a great job for our community, with the vast majority of them being volunteers. And we need more volunteers, so if you're interested in any of that, contact those organizations, whether it's the Volunteer Fire Department, SVAC, or those two organizations need more and younger volunteers, I should say. So good job to everybody. It hasn't been a great summer. We had a couple nice days, but it's getting here. Be safe on the 4th of July. Enjoy everything. Be patient with everybody. And one thing I will put out, I'm sure it will be out there, is the memorial service for David Brasso will be on July 6th at the Lutheran Church, I believe at 1 p.m., if I have the time correct. I'm sorry?
It'll be posted.
Yeah, it should be posted. So we're working on that. But other than that, everybody just be safe.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wells.
Yeah. First, I'd like to say thank you to the city for the opportunity for those of us to go to Over Hero. And this is me requesting to the businesses out there to contact our committee. If you can donate your time, your fishing charter, your lodging, anything to, anything to make the event not only positive, but to ease the financial burden. And of course, I want to echo everything in regards to Officer Josh Ballard and to the rest of the Seward Police Department. I really appreciate them, and our first responders as well. And thank you to Kat and the Chamber for putting together such a huge event for the 4th of July. I can only imagine. And as a person who used to be on the board of directors, it is a huge, huge task that the Chamber works on. So thank you so much for putting that all together. And yeah, that's everybody have a wonderful holiday.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember DeVos.
Everyone got everything I was going to say. I think I do want to reiterate, thank you so much to Josh Ballard and the police department for all the work that you guys do. I know my business utilizes your services quite often, and I've never experienced a negative interaction in my 15 years of doing business here. It's always been such a pleasure, and the service that you provide has always been extremely professional. Just really appreciate it, so thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Osinga.
Yeah, pretty much everything's been said already, you know. Thank you, Officer Ballard, for just doing your job, you know, as you put it. That's a heroic act, and I have all the respect for what you guys do, and thank you to all of our first responders, and again, reiterate, yeah, if you have time and you can volunteer for SBAC or our ambulance corps, I agree, please step up. And everyone, please have a safe and fun 4th of July.
Okay, and I echo the thanks to the police department. Particularly, I rely on you guys. I feel safe because of you. I came to the realization in seeing the front of the packet and doing a few things that I've got to start wearing a different jacket occasionally, because there's the picture of me in that jacket at the animal shelter dedication, the cemetery walk. I wore the same jacket, and I'm sure there are pictures. And then Saturday we dedicated the Alfred Lowell statue down by Zudi's, and if you haven't seen that yet, it is spectacular. And I wore the same jacket in that one too, so I commented to a citizen that I think it's time for me to start just shifting around on jackets a little bit, but what's really neat is to be able to see things like this happen in Seward, and especially, well, the cemetery walk is historical, as well as the Alfred Lowell. And so one of the things that came out of the cemetery walk that struck me is we read obituaries, Lee Pileski does, right? And one of the ones he chose was Chamberlain. And this was the former mayor that Chamberlain Road is named after. And we discussed he pointed out that for years he was trying to get the street sign there changed to the correct spelling of Chamberlain, which is I-N, which is now is, and it was Chamberlain, but in many of the writings about this gentleman, it was both ways. But anyway, so that was kind of interesting, and it turns out that our Public Works Director and I were the ones that got that change made, you know, so everybody kind of thought that was funny. Small town, because we had guest visitors there that, whoa, the mayor's here and everybody that works, you know, it just was interesting, interesting time. And on the 4th of July, I understand our chamber director might be running the race this year, and I just hope you don't beat my best time, but we're going to find out. This is her goal, is to beat my best time in the race, but you remember that best time was when I was running with men. It wasn't just women, and I had to wait at the bottom for a lot of guys before I could get to running up that mountain, so we'll see.
It'll never be good enough.
And I want to remind everyone that we are meeting at 5 o'clock on Wednesday to have interviews for city manager and discuss that stuff at 5 o'clock, and that's open to the public. So I believe that's it. And do you have anything else? We always do. I'm waiting. No. Okay, so I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:35 p.m.